So we'll get started with today's session. So today our topics of discussion are magnetic effects of current and magnetism. So I'll just give a quick brush up, then we'll do some problems from the worksheet that I've shared. Then we'll go to magnetism. Okay. So the context magnetic effects of electric current says, in this chapter, we mainly concentrate on what? That when current is flowing through a conductor, then there is a magnetic field generated around it. So it was first observed by Oersted. Then we studied about what is this magnetic field. So the unit of magnetic field is Tesla. It is also called as Weber per meter square, where Weber is a unit of magnetic flux. In SI unit, 1 Gauss is 10 power minus 4 Tesla. Similarly, what are all the rules that we know to find the direction of magnetic field? So we can find the direction of magnetic field using the right hand thumb rule. And I would have explained you the concept of vector method, right? Using the cross product of vectors, you can find the direction of magnetic field, right? Then what are all the important laws in this chapter? One is Biot-Savart law, and the second is Ampere's circuital law. So what does Biot-Savart law speak about? Anybody?
The magnetic field due to an elementary part of a conductor.
Magnetic field due to a small part of the conductor is directly proportional to the amount of current flowing through it. It is directly proportional to the length of the smaller portion, and it is inversely proportional to the distance from the current carrying conductor to the point where you're trying to calculate the magnetic field. So dB is equal to, what is the formula? Mu naught IDL sine theta, the whole divided by r square, or dB as a vector is given as mu naught divided by 4 pi I into dl vector cross r vector, the whole divided by r square, right? Sorry, by r cube. When you have cross product, the denominator is r cube. When you write it in the scalar form, the denominator is r square. So there's a known formula. Similarly, magnetic field due to a straight current carrying conductor is given by the formula B is equal to mu naught I divided by 4 pi r into sine of phi 1 plus sine of phi 2, where phi 1 and phi 2 are what? They are the angles subtended by the ends of the current carrying conductor at the point where you're trying to calculate the magnetic field, right? So for an infinite length conductor, the observation at the point where you're trying to calculate the magnetic field is mu naught I divided by mu naught divided by 4 pi into 2I divided by 4 r, or this can also be written as mu naught I divided by 2 pi r. So remember this, okay? So for an infinite length conductor, it is mu naught I divided by 2 pi r. For an infinite length conductor, for a semi-infinite length conductor, okay, I'll put it like this. So what do you mean by semi-infinite is, when you take the conductor, if the point P is at one of the ends, then the magnetic field at this point due to this current carrying conductor is given by the expression mu naught I divided by 4 pi r, where r is this perpendicular distance. Guys, am I clear with this? These two are some important formulae. You might get problems for 1 mark.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So right hand thumb rule, you guys know. You take the right hand, extend the thumb of your right hand in the direction of current, curl the fingers as if you are going to hold the conductor. The direction in which the fingers are curled will give you the direction of magnetic field. Similarly, magnetic field at the center of a current carrying coil is given by what expression? It is given by the expression mu naught I divided by 2a. It is not 2a, 2 pi a. So it is mu naught I divided by 2a. So one important point I want to stress here is straight, infinite, and circular coil center, the formula will be similar. Mu naught I divided by 2 pi r. Here it will be mu naught I divided by 2r. So one confusion that arises is, many people write 2 pi r for circular coil, but remember, for circular coil, pi does not exist. Whereas for a straight current carrying conductor of infinite length, the pi exists. Okay. Similarly, if it is only a part of the conductor, Okay, if it is only a part of the conductor where that part is subtending an angle theta at the center, then its formula is given as mu naught divided by 4 pi into I divided by r, where r is the radius, into theta, where theta should be measured in radians. Please make a note of this point. So theta should be measured in radians. It should not be measured in terms of degrees. Okay. Similarly, this point also you guys know. If you take a loop, if the current is flowing in the loop in the clockwise direction, then you are facing the south pole. If the current in the loop is flowing in the anti-clockwise direction, you are facing the north pole. This is called as the clock rule, right? Similarly, magnetic field on the axis of a current carrying circular coil is given by what formula? Mu naught NIA square divided by 2 into A square plus X square, the whole power 3 by 2, where mu naught is a constant. Now, capital N stands for the number of turns, I stands for the current, A stands for the area, A stands for the radius, and X stands for the distance from the center to the point where you're trying to calculate the field. Okay. So from this formula, if you have to calculate it at center, then you will get the formula as mu naught N into I divided by 2A. So I hope you guys have practiced the derivations of it. For CBSE, it is important. So generally in CBSE, if they give a 5-mark question, no, they give it as 3-1-1 or 3-2. They don't give it like a direct 5-mark question. So be careful that 3-mark can be derivation and 1 and 1 mark can be an application of it, or 3-mark derivation and 2-mark direct application of it. So please ensure you're practicing all the derivations. That is the first rule. If you still don't have understanding of those derivations, revisit the videos. Still you don't understand, approach me. Okay. Next is Ampere's circular law. So what does Ampere's circular law state? The line integral of the magnetic field around any closed path in vacuum is given as mu naught times the current enclosed by the Amperian loop. So integral of DDL is equal to mu naught times I. We write it as I enclosed also. Okay. Next. So magnetic field due to a current carrying long circular cylindrical wire. This is actually a problem. This I will discuss when we are doing the problems. Okay. Next is, for a solenoid, what is the magnetic field inside it? It is given by the expression B is equal to mu naught into Ni. How are you going to derive it? So derivation is, you will take a rectangular loop like this, right? I hope you guys remember all those things. So from that, you will get the value of B as mu naught into small n into I. Similarly, if you want to calculate the magnetic field at a point at one of the ends of a long solenoid, what do we mean by long solenoid? Its length is more compared to the thickness, right, of a long solenoid is given by mu naught into N into I divided by 2, where N represents the number of turns per unit length, right? Similar is the case with the toroid. It is given by the expression B is equal to mu naught into N into I. Whereas for a toroid, you don't have anything called as ends. So that is the only formula that you're going to have. Okay. Next. Force acting on a charged particle which is moving in uniform magnetic field. So what is this formula? F is equal to Q into V vector cross V vector. So there is something called as Lorentz formula. So Lorentz formula states Q into V vector cross B vector. This is the magnetic force experienced by the particle. If it is electrostatic force, it is Q into E vector. The sum of both will give you the total force experienced by the charged particle which is moving in a combined magnetic and electric field. Right, we know this formula also, Q into VB sine theta, right? Next is, what does this Fleming's left-hand rule use for? It is mainly used to calculate the direction of the force experienced by a current carrying conductor. So how do you do that? You extend your forefinger, the central finger, and the thumb mutually perpendicular to each other. Of which hand? Of your left hand, mutually perpendicular to each other, such that the forefinger represents the field, central finger represents the current, then the thumb represents the thrust, which is nothing but the force, right? Similarly, if you talk about the motion of a charged particle in uniform magnetic field, what are all the angles at which the particles can be projected? That will be another 1-mark question. So if the charged particle is projected at theta is equal to 0 degrees, or 180 degrees? What is going to be the path? Quick. So if the particle is projected at an angle theta is equal to 0 degrees or 180 degrees with respect to the magnetic field, then what is going to be the path?
Straight lines.
Why?
No force, sir.
No force. So straight line, and it is a uniform motion. Means it will move with a uniform velocity, right? Next, theta is equal to 90 degrees.
Circular.
Yes, the path is going to be circular because the centripetal force comes into existence. So what kind of circular motion? Is it uniform or non-uniform? Is it uniform circular motion or non-uniform?
Uniform.
It is uniform circular motion because there is no tangential force existing for it. There is only centripetal force existing. Okay. Similarly, theta is equal to any angle other than 0, 90 or 180. What is that? Is helical path. So what is going to be the radius of the circular path? R is equal to mv divided by qb. How do we get it? Mv square divided by r is equal to q into v into b. Sin theta will be 1 because theta is equal to 90 degrees. V and v will get cancelled. So r is equal to mv divided by qb, where v is the velocity of the speed of the particle, which is perpendicular to the magnetic field. So this is an important formula. So r is equal to mv divided by qb. The different kinds of problems that you can face. mv stands for what? It is linear momentum. P divided by qb, and linear momentum can also be written as root of 2m into ke divided by qb, because the linear momentum is root of 2m into kinetic energy. Or this can also be written as root of 2m into ev, the whole divided by qb, where ev stands for what? Charge of the particle into the potential difference. So depending on what parameter is given in the question, you can use that formula and find the radius. Similarly, time period of the particle is given as 2 pi m divided by qb, and the frequency is given as qb divided by 2 pi m. This is also called as cyclotron frequency, right? Similarly, with respect to the helical path, what is going to be the radius of the particle? R is equal to m into v sin theta divided by qb, and the time period will be 2 pi m divided by qb. And there is a concept called as pitch. What is pitch? It is the distance traveled by the charged particle in one time period due to the horizontal component of the velocity, which is v cos theta. So v cos theta multiplied with t will give you the pitch, which is 2 pi mv cos theta, the whole divided by qb. Okay. Next is motion of a charged particle in combined electric and magnetic field, which is given by the Lorentz force. This I have already told you. F is equal to q into E vector plus v cross b vector. Okay. So acceleration of the particle is equal to QE divided by m. If suppose V, E, and B are perpendicular to each other such that the electrostatic force plus the magnetic force is coming out to be 0, then when the particle is passing through such a field, it will travel with the same velocity without any deviation in its path. And this principle is called as velocity selector. I hope you guys remember this, right? So V is equal to E divided by B is going to be the velocity with which the particle will move in a combined electric and magnetic fields which are mutually perpendicular to each other. Right? So cyclotron is not there in your syllabus, so you need not worry about it. Next, force on a current carrying conductor in magnetic field. So when a current carrying conductor is placed in magnetic field, it starts experiencing a force given by the expression I into L vector cross B vector. Or this can also be written as V into I into L sin theta. Similarly, force between two infinitely long parallel current carrying conductors, how do you call it as? The force per unit length is given as mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi into d, where d stands for the distance of separation between them. Suppose This is another important question that is always asked. If I1 and I2 are parallel to each other, I mean, if they are in the same direction, then will they get attracted or repelled?
Attracted.
Attracted.
They get attracted if same direction. So obviously, if they're in the opposite direction, they get repelled. It is unlike the principle of charges. Okay, remember it like that. So this part is not needed. Similarly, when you talk about a magnetic dipole, what is the magnetic dipole moment of a current carrying loop? M is equal to N into I into A. So the number of turns multiplied with the current multiplied with the area of that particular loop is going to give you the magnetic dipole moment. Right? So what is the torque acting on a current carrying coil placed inside a uniform magnetic field? That is given by the expression torque is equal to N into I into B A sine theta, where theta is the angle between what? Where theta is the angle between the magnetic field and the normal to the plane of the coil. Okay, I hope all these points are clear. This is an important one. So when you talk about a moving coil galvanometer, what are all the points to be known? One definition is current sensitivity. So what is current sensitivity? The deflection produced per unit current in a galvanometer is called as current sensitivity. That is deflection, the amount of deflection produced when a unit ampere of current, when a unit value of current is flowing through the conductor or the galvanometer is what is called as current sensitivity. Then what is voltage sensitivity? Theta divided by B. So it is going to be NBA divided by K into R, where N stands for the number of turns, B stands for magnetic field, A stands for the area of the coil, K stands for the torsional constant, and R stands for the resistance of the galvanometer. Okay. So this is also an important point. If you want a galvanometer to be sensitive, what are all the parameters to be controlled? N should be large. Okay. B should be large, A should be large, and K should be small. That is, the galvanometer is more sensitive, it has more amount of current sensitivity. Since current sensitivity is directly proportional to N into B into A, the numerator should be high, the denominator should be low. That is the logic. Okay. Next, how will you convert a galvanometer into an ammeter?
Shunt resistance parallel to the galvanometer.
Yeah. If you say shunt resistance, that's enough. Shunt itself means parallel. Okay. You should either say shunt resistance and leave, or you should say a resistance in parallel. That's it. Okay. So shunt resistance connected across a galvanometer, right, is going to. So shunt resistance should its value be high or low?
Low.
Low.
Why low?
To ensure that there's maximum current flowing through the galvanometer.
Yes. Flowing through whom?
Oh, through the shunt. Sorry.
Through the shunt.
Through the shunt. Because galvanometer is a sensitive device. More current flows through it, it will get spoiled. Okay. So you need to ensure that. So when that is the case, IG into G is equal to I minus IG into S. What does IG stand for? It is a full scale deflection current. Right? So formula for shunt resistance is IG into G divided by I minus I into G. Then what about a voltmeter? So conversion of galvanometer into voltmeter, you need to connect a resistor, a high resistance in series with the galvanometer so that you ensure less amount of current is flowing through it. That is one logic. The second logic is voltmeter has high resistance. That is the reason. Okay. Then the potential difference that you're trying to measure is given as IG into R plus G. Why IG into R plus G? Because the equivalent resistance is R plus G. So R will be equal to V by IG minus capital G. So this is the amount of resistance you need to connect in parallel to ensure that it is converted to a voltmeter. Okay. So this is the outline, guys. So what I'm expecting is derivations part, everything you have to take care. If you have doubt, you approach me. So let's do some problems. So try this one. If only 2% of the current is to pass through a galvanometer of resistance G, then the resistance of the shunt will be how much? So if the total current is I, then what will be the value of Ig?
Two by 100 of I.
That's right. 2 by 100 of I is the amount of current that should flow through Ig. So they're asking S is equal to how much? S, what is the formula? Just now we saw. Ig into G divided by I minus I into G. So Ig into G divided by I minus Ig. That's it. So Ig is how much? 2 by 100 times I divided by I minus 2 by 100 times I. So that is 98 divided by, so 2I divided by 98I. And G is there. It is G divided by 49. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Next. So you can convert a galvanometer into an ammeter by providing,
Low resistance in parallel.
where is it? Option C. And third, you have a proton and an alpha particle in your hand, which follow the same circular path in a transverse magnetic field. What do you mean by transverse?
Perpendicular.
So transverse means perpendicular. In a perpendicular magnetic field, their kinetic energies are in the ratio of what? How to solve? They're traveling in the same circular path. So what are the hints there?
Same radius.
Radius is same.
That's right. So R is equal to root of 2m into k divided by QB. Correct? 1 minute. So R is equal to root of 2m into k divided by Q into B. So kinetic energy will be Q square B square R square divided by 2m. So kinetic energy 1 divided by kinetic energy 2 of proton is to alpha particle. That's how much? Q square B square R square divided by 2m. Q square B square R square divided by 2m. What all parameters get cancelled? Here Q of proton, mass of proton, Q of alpha particle, mass of alpha
B square
particle,
R
B
square goes.
they are the same. 2 gets cancelled. So it is QP square into M alpha divided by Q alpha square into MP. QP square over. The charge of the proton is taken as
Sir,
E.
Suma 1 vechukala, sir.
Yeah, you can take
Ah,
it
yes.
as eta.
Okay, sir.
Because charge of proton and electron are same. So what is the mass of the alpha particle? Four times mass of the proton divided by Q alpha square. It is 2 times that of electron, 2e square into mass of proton. Cancel it. So you will get it as 1:1. Did you understand what I did? I'm sharing the screen. This alpha particle and proton, you guys have to remember. Often asked questions. Guys, shall I move on to the next one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there is a magnet of magnetic moment 2 joule per Tesla, which is aligned in the direction of magnetic field of 0.1 Tesla. What is the network done to bring the magnet normal to the magnetic field? So yesterday also we did a similar problem, except the fact that There it was electric field, now it is magnetic field. So wherever work done is, what are we supposed to do?
Potential energy.
Yes. So what is given in the question? The magnetic dipole moment is 2 joule per Tesla. It is aligned in the direction of magnetic field. Okay. So initially theta 1 was 0 degrees. What is the network done to bring the magnet normal to the magnetic field? Say theta 2 is equal to 90 degrees. So initially
MT
what was?
cos theta 2 minus cos theta 1.
Yes. We just have to multiply 2 into 0.1. That's the answer. And cos theta 2 will be 0. Theta 90.
Cos theta 1 minus cos theta 2.
It is how much?
1
M
minus
is 2.
0.2.
0.2. That's it. Right. Next. There is an electron which is traveling along the x direction. It encounters a magnetic field in the y direction. Its subsequent motion will be. So who is going to decide the motion of the charged particle in the magnetic field? Which parameter of it? Is it kinetic energy, momentum, force? What is it? Now you guys tell me.
The cross product, sir.
So charged particle projected perpendicular to the magnetic field. Cross product. Now, what is the answer?
The circle in the XZ plane.
That's right. But give me an explanation. F is equal to, forget about the sign, E into V vector cross B vector. So E David. V is in V I cap cross B
J cap.
J cap. I cross J is going to give you K. Whether it is plus K or minus K, we are not. So for you to recollect also, I J K. So I cross J is going to give you K. So EVB into K cap. So K cap means it is experiencing a force in the Z direction. It is already having a velocity in the X direction. So which plane is it going to take?
X.
XZ plane. Guys, am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Sixth one. An alpha particle crosses a space without any deflection. Okay. The electric field of 8 into 10 power 6 volt per meter and the magnetic field of 1.6 Tesla is acting. The velocity of the particle is. What is the concept it is based on? So they told
Velocity selector.
Yes, it is based on the principle of velocity selector. So what is the answer? E divided by B. Correct? V is equal to E divided by B. E is 8 into 10 power 6 divided by 1.6. So it should be 5 into 10 power 6 meter per second. Try the next one. 1 minute time. Try it out. So charged particle is moving in a uniform magnetic field in a circular path with radius r. When the energy of the particle is doubled, the new radius will be. So when they say energy, what energy are they trying to talk about?
Kinetic energy.
Yes. So what formula are you going to use?
Root 2 mk by
Q square B square.
That's whatever you told. That both are right. So Q square B squared R square divided by 2m. So if I take initial as Ki, final as Kf, so Kf என்ன இருக்கும்? It is Q square B square R square divided by 2m. So what are the parameters that are changed? Everything else is
KF will be 2K, sir.
K
R,
is
so this will become 4R square. Avladana. So
Yes,
Q
sir.
square B square.
That's all.
This will get R square gets cancelled. 2M gets cancelled. So K initial divided by K final is 1:4. So K final will become. Did I do any mistake? Oh, when the energy of the particle is doubled.
So
Sorry,
it's
sir.
2 in
No, I thought radius is doubled. I didn't read the question.
That's why that root 2 அப்படின்னு பண்ணலாம்ல sir.
That is better. Actually, I thought they're asking kinetic energy. Root of 2m into k divided by qb. So R is directly proportional to root k. So R1 by R2 is equal to root k by root of 2k. So R2 will be root 2R. Then answer.
yes, sir.
Right. Next. 8th one. Two long parallel wires are at a distance of 1 meter. If both of them carry a current of 1 ampere, then the force of attraction means current is flowing in
Same direction.
same direction. So force of attraction per unit length F divided by L. So mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi into D. So mu naught divided by 2 pi is how much?
2 into
See,
10
mu
power
naught.
minus
2 into
Yes. So 2 into 10 power minus 7. I1 into I2 is 1 divided by distance is also 1. So 2 into 10 power minus 7 is the answer. Correct? Next. So do the 10th one, guys. 9th is based on magnetism. So there is a charge which is moving with the velocity of v in the x direction. Is subject to the field of magnetic induction in the negative x direction. As a result, the charge will very simple question. Velocity is in I cap direction. Magnetic field
remain
is in minus I.
unaffected.
Remains
Remain
un-
unaffected.
Yes. Okay. 13th one. The magnet of magnetic dipole moment M is kept in a uniform magnetic field of strength B, making an angle theta with the direction. The torque acting on it is. It's actually a direct question.
MB sin theta.
MB
Yes,
sin.
torque is equal to NIAB sin theta. No, this NIA is nothing but M, so it is MB times sin theta. That's the answer. Next, 14th one. Magnetism, right? Yes. So there is a small coil carrying current in equilibrium is perpendicular to the direction of the uniform magnetic field. So there is a small coil carrying current in equilibrium is perpendicular to the direction of uniform magnetic field. Okay, what are they trying to say? Okay. Small coil carrying current is perpendicular to the direction of magnetic field. Okay, let's understand the statement like this. There is a small coil carrying current and it is in equilibrium provided here it is perpendicular to the direction of uniform magnetic field. Is it possible? So there is a small coil like this and the magnetic field is in this direction. One minute. Huh?
Sir, both A and R are false, sir.
How are you saying A and R are false?
Sir, if a small coil carrying current is in a uniform magnetic field that's perpendicular, it will experience a torque, sir, because NIAB sin theta.
Okay. But what does
So
the
now
theta
Theta is angle between. Area vector. Okay.
It is angle between the area and the magnetic field. That is what I'm thinking about. So if it has to be in equilibrium, torque should be 0. Okay, let's read the next one. Torque is maximum when the plane of the coil and the direction of magnetic field are parallel to each other. Because see, the first point alone I'm not able to get it. There is a small current carrying coil. It is perpendicular to the direction of the uniform magnetic field. Yes, it is in equilibrium. See, I'll show you that. I'll switch on the video and show it to you. I'll explain what they're trying to do. Are you guys able to see me? So, there is a coil like this. This coil is perpendicular to the magnetic field. It is not like this. It's perpendicular to the magnetic field means then its aerial vector is in this direction. Okay. Now, what is going to be the value of the angle between the magnetic field and the aerial vector?
90
0.
degrees.
0,
180.
It is 0 degrees, right? So that is the concept of radial magnetic field. No?
Yes, sir.
So it is always like this in such a way that theta is 0. So torque is going to be 0. So it is going to be in equilibrium. Assertion is true. No doubt in that. Okay, now let's read the reason for it. So assertion is true. Torque is maximum when the plane of the coil and the direction of the magnetic field are parallel to each other.
False.
Why is it false, sir? Read the statement again. This also I'll show you.
So that's true, sir. It's 90
It's
degrees.
true. In a magnetic field, now plane of the coil is like this. Plane like that. This is like this. When this is the case, magnetic field is like this. The aerial vector is towards us. So theta is going to be 90. Torque will be maximum, no doubt in that. Okay. So that is also true. Now we have to link both. So this is also true. But is there a connection between assertion and reason? Is there a connection? First one speaks about equilibrium. Second one speaks about the maximum torque. So maximum torque cannot be in equilibrium. So individually, both the statements are right, but R is not the right explanation for A. Guys, clear? Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So please make a note of it. Write it down. So this part is not needed because we need to know the properties of the materials. Shall I move on to the next one, by the way? Moving
Yes,
on
sir.
to the 16. So there is a charged particle moving in a uniform magnetic field, penetrates a layer of lead and thereby loses half of its kinetic energy. The radius of curvature of the path is now reduced to half of its initial value. Is it right? So how is kinetic energy and radius related? Kinetic energy is directly proportional to R square. So if it loses half of its kinetic energy, then the radius of the curved path should decrease by what factor? Okay.
1 by 4.
Kinetic
1 by root 2.
1 by root 2. Kinetic energy becomes half. Radius will become root 2 of this, right? So here, radius of curvature is now reduced to half this long. It is 1 by root 2 times its initial value. It's right. Next, kinetic energy is inversely proportional to radius of curvature. A direct wrong statement. So A is false, R is also false. Clear, guys? What is it? Torque experienced by a current carrying coil placed in uniform magnetic field. Two parallel wires carrying currents in the same direction attract each other, while the two beams of electrons traveling the same direction repel each other. Right. So give reason for it. So two parallel wires carry currents in the same direction, attract each other. So here there is magnetic force that is coming to picture, while the two electrons. So you can just mention the reason as first case is magnetic interaction, second case is electrostatic interaction. That's the reason. So this question you can actually forget it because you need to know what kind of a magnet is bismuth. So only then you will be able to answer this question. So this kind of question will not come. But if you want the answer, I will tell you. Since toroid uses bismuth, bismuth is what material? Anybody, guys? Anybody?
Diamagnetic.
It's a diamagnetic substance. So will the field in the core be slightly greater or slightly less than when the core is empty? So diamagnetic material, will it repel the external magnetic field or attract the external magnetic field? Will it support or oppose? Not sure.
I'm not sure.
Oppose.
No problem. Paramagnetic and ferromagnetic are similar. Okay. So just for your knowledge, paramagnetic and ferromagnetic are similar, where paramagnetic is weaker, very much weaker compared to the ferromagnetic. Means a ferromagnetic substance will support the external magnetic field, means it will get aligned in the direction of external magnetic field. Whereas a diamagnetic substance will align itself in the direction opposite to the external magnetic field. Now tell me what will be the answer. Will the field inside the toroid decrease or increase?
Increase.
It will decrease. It will be slightly less than when the core was empty. Core was empty means when vacuum was there, that time whatever field was there, it will be slightly lesser this time. Okay, anyways, it's only for your knowledge. Don't worry, that will not come. Define magnetic flux. Give it SI units, leaving it to you. Next. There is a charged particle which is released from rest in a region of steady and uniform electric and magnetic fields which are parallel to each other. What will be the nature of the path followed by the charged particle? So charged particle is released from rest. So due to electric field, it experiences force in the direction of electric field. Due to magnetic field, it will experience no force.
No.
So what will be the path? It will be a straight line. But here it is an accelerated motion. Why is it accelerating? Accelerated means it is experiencing force. It is experiencing force. It is due to the electric field. That's the answer. Okay. So which physical quantity has a unit Weber per meter square? This also you can say magnetic field. Is it a scalar or a vector quantity? Obviously, it's a vector quantity. Right. We will do two more problems and then we'll move on to the magnetism part. So try this one. No? The wire shown in the figure carries a current of 10 ampere. Determine the magnitude of the magnetic field at the center given the radius of the bent coil is 3 centimeter. So what formula we use? If you have a coil like this, which is making an angle theta at the center, and the current is I, radius is R, magnetic field will be mu naught divided by 4 pi into I divided by R into theta, where theta is in radian,
Radians.
right? So if you see this question, you have a circular coil and 2 straight current carrying coils. So what is the contribution of the magnetic field due to the 2 straight current carrying coils at point O? Answer is very simple. You need not think, you can directly look and tell.
0.
It is a direct 0 because, why is it so? Why is it 0?
So it is along the direction of
So when the current carrying conductor is passing through the point or tending to pass through the point where you're trying to calculate the field, it will contribute no magnetic field because theta will be 0 degrees there. Correct? So by itself,
Yes.
law states ideal sine theta, no, that theta value will be 0. So these 2 straight current carrying conductors contribute nothing. So the only magnetic field is existing due to the circular coil. And what is the answer for it? Mu naught divided by 4 pi into I divided by R. What is the value of theta? Theta
pi by
should be
2.
Again a common mistake. You should not take the external angle. You should take the angle interior. They gave you that 90 to confuse you. It is 3 pi by 2. Okay, it is 3 pi by 2. Cancel pi pi. So answer will be 3 times mu naught I divided by 8R. And what is the direction of magnetic field, guys?
Minus K.
It is minus K cap. It is into the plane of the paper. If at all the values are given, you have to substitute and find it out. That part is your headache. Okay. Next, let's do the 30th one. So figure shows a triangular loop PQR carrying current I. The triangle is equilateral with side equal to L. If a uniform magnetic field B exists parallel to PQ, then find the forces acting on the 3 wires separately. So here, what is the tricky part? So force experienced by PQ, how much is it? Directly tell me. What is the formula for force?
I into L cross.
I into L cross B if it is vector form. If it is in scalar form, it is B into I into L sine theta. Right, where theta is the angle between whom? It is the angle between the direction of current and the magnetic field. In this case, what is going to be the force experienced by PQ?
0.
0.
Because it is parallel. Similarly, what is the force experienced by QR? So QR, what you can do is if you extend it like this is 60 degrees. Means how much will this be? It will be 120 degrees. So F across QR is equal to B into I into L into sine 120 degrees. So B is B only, I is I only, L into sine of how much is the angle? Sine 120 is how much?
3 by 2.
Minus rho 3 by 2.
Root 3 by 2. Sine 120 second quadrant, it is positive. Root 3 BIL divided by 2. Okay. Similar is going to be the force experienced by PR also because there the angle is going to be 60 degrees. suppose you want to find the direction in which the force is being experienced. Can you tell me the direction in which the conductor QR will experience the force? So whenever you're doing cross product, remember, it is always perpendicular to both the vectors for which you're doing the cross product. So it will be normal to the plane, is no doubt. Is it into or out of the plane is what I want. It is into the plane. Why? It is I into L vector plus B vector. No? I'll tell you a technique to find the answer. So by the way, you can apply another rule, right? What rule can you apply to find the direction?
Lemming's left.
You can apply and see, no? So forefinger in the direction of field. Central finger in the direction of current. Are you getting it into the plane of the paper? Your thumb will point into the plane of. Yes. So similarly, RP will experience a force in the direction out of the plane and normal to the surface. Is there anyone who want me to explain that? Who is not clear? Why? How to find the direction? Okay. So I assume everyone is clear, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just give me a minute, guys. So in magnetism and its matter, you have only Earth's magnetism, right? So let's discuss that alone. I'm not discussing other stuffs. So with respect to Earth's magnetism, what are all the three important terms we are supposed to know? So we know the fact that Earth behaves like a huge magnet. The value of the magnetic field on the Earth's magnet is few of the tenths of a Gauss. Okay. And the other important thing is its magnetic strength varies from place to place on the Earth's surface. Right. So there are some basic terms that you need to know. What is a magnetic meridian? So there are two terms again, magnetic axis and magnetic meridian, geographic axis and geographic meridian. So what do you mean by magnetic meridian? So axis means one-dimensional. Meridian means it's a two-dimensional thing. That is a plane. So vertical plane that is passing through the magnetic axis is what we call it as magnetic meridian. Then what is a geographic meridian? It is also a vertical plane which passes through the geographic axis. Okay. So there are three important elements that are going to describe the magnetism of Earth at a particular location. Suppose you are standing at a particular location and holding a compass. The compass will show you a particular direction, right? Who is actually deciding it? There are certain components that are present. Those components are called as the elements of the Earth's magnetism. So first, there is something called as magnetic declination. So what do you mean by magnetic declination? It is called magnetic declination, or it is also called as angle of variation. Angle of variation is not a book term, but in some, generally you can call it as angle of variation, because there is some variance, there is some difference between the way the magnetic meridian and the geographic meridian are aligned with respect to each other. Okay. So if you are able to calculate the smaller angle that is subtended between the magnetic meridian and geographic meridian, that smaller angle is what we call it as magnetic declination, right? Then what is magnetic inclination or magnetic dip, or it is also called as angle of dip? It is the smaller angle that is subtended between the magnetic axis and the horizontal line is what we call it as magnetic inclination or magnetic dip. That is, to put it in other terms, when you hold any object about its center of gravity, okay, when you hold any object about its center of gravity, what will happen to it? I'll show you this. Suppose this pen with which I'm writing, if I'm holding it about its center of gravity, it is stable. It is not experiencing any rotational force, or it is not experiencing any rotation or translation. If I hold it at any other point, I'm able to see that it is able to rotate it, right? So if I hold it about its center of gravity, it should not move down. It should not turn like this, right? So if you look at a compass, the compass will exactly be screwed at its center of gravity. So if you place at a particular location, when the magnet is trying to show a particular direction, it will not turn like this. It will rather turn like this. It will undergo an oscillation and it will go and stand like this. Actually, it will keep oscillating. So when it is oscillating, in spite of being connected across the center of gravity, it is all happening because of this concept of dip. Okay, so what is this magnetic dip all about? When the compass is getting bent like this, whatever is the smallest angle this magnetic field is making with respect to the horizontal is what we call it as the angle of dip. Clear? This angle of dip is a very, very important term, because every mathematical expression comes only based on the magnetic dip. Clear, guys? Yes or
Okay,
no?
sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Good. So once you know the magnetic dip at a particular location, if suppose this is the Earth's magnetic field at a particular location, right? So how this is there means this is north, this is south. We know that, see, because this is the compass needle. Take this as the compass needle. What is the direction of magnetic field? Outside the magnet, the direction of magnetic field is from north to south. Inside it is from south to north. And we know the fact that compass needle is also a small magnet. So this is taken as the direction of Earth's magnetic field at that particular point. There is a small dip that is going to occur. So this magnetic field, the Earth's magnetic field at a particular location can be resolved into two components, that is B cos delta and BE sin delta. Correct? This B cos delta is what we call it as the horizontal component of the Earth's magnetic field, and B sin delta is what we call it as the vertical component of the Earth's magnetic field. So this is the theory part. With respect to problems, if you see with respect to problems, what they will do is they'll give you certain parameters and ask you to find the other. For example, if they give you BE square, we know that BE square is nothing but BH square plus BV square by applying the parallelogram law of vectors. Right, BH square plus BV square. So they can give you any of the two parameters, ask you to calculate the third. Suppose they want you to calculate the angle of dip, then tan delta is given by the formula B vertical divided by B horizontal. That is the vertical component of the magnetic field to the horizontal component of magnetic field. Because what is B vertical? B vertical is BE sin delta. B horizontal is BE cos delta. Cancel it. Sin delta by cos delta is going to give you tan delta. So any of the parameters will be given and the third will be asked. So this is all about Earth's magnetic field, and that is what we need to know. Okay. So we will try out few problems based on this concept. We'll do only based on Earth's magnetic field. Okay. So SI unit of magnetic pole strength is ampere meter square. If you know, it is enough. Now look at it. The vertical component of Earth's magnetic field is 0 at a place. Then the angle of dip at that location is how much? They're saying the vertical component is 0. What is the formula of vertical component? It is BE cos delta, that is 0. So what is the answer, guys? Delta will be,
should be B sin delta. So
oh, sorry. So BE sin delta is what is 0. So theta should be 0. Okay. So I've taken few questions, but these things are not needed. Check one second. So let's try out the 17th one. The Earth's magnetic field does not affect the working of a moving coil galvanometer. Earth's magnetic field is very weak. Okay. So I told you one important point in magnetism, the Earth's magnetism. The Earth's magnetism is few tenths of a Gauss. Gauss itself is a very small quantity. Then obviously Earth's magnetic field will be even more smaller. So is there a possibility for a smaller magnetic field to affect the working of a moving coil galvanometer? The answer is no. You're using it in the lab already, right? When you're doing the meter bridge experiment and everything, there is Earth's magnetism present in your lab also. But if you see the deflection, it is able to show the torque that is being produced to the needle is only due to the current that is flowing. It is not due to the Earth's magnetic field. So this assertion is true. And why is it true? Because the Earth's magnetic field is very weak in nature. It doesn't have that strength to affect the sensitivity of a galvanometer. So the answer is both are true, and R is the right explanation for A. Okay. So again, bar magnet concept is not needed. This is also not needed. Let's try the 33rd one. The Earth's field is claimed roughly approximate the fields due to a dipole of magnetic moment 8 into 10 power 22 joule per Tesla located at its center. Check the other magnitude of this number in some other way. What are they asking? This also you can't do because you need to know the formula for magnetic field in terms of, like you remember this formula? Electric field along axial point is given by Kp divided by R cube. Similarly, the electric field along equatorial point is given as, sorry, here it is 2 Kp, here it is Kp divided by R cube. You need to know these formula because they have given in terms of magnetic dipole moment. These formulae are also not there, so you need not worry. I'll tell you what are all the things you need not do. Okay, let's try this one. Magnetic meridian. So this also you need not do. Yes. 40-second we can try. If delta 1 and delta 2 be the angle of dips observed in two planes at right angles to each other, and delta is the true angle of dip. Okay. Prove that cot square delta 1 plus cot square delta 2. Prove that cot square delta 1 plus cot square delta 2 is cot square delta. how to do this. So there are two planes which are at right angles to each other, and delta is the true angle of dip. Okay. Then prove that cot square delta 1 plus cot square delta 2 is cot square delta. Let's try this out. Guys, did you read the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's try this out. This is slightly tough only. Okay. So there are two planes which are perpendicular to each other. If two planes are perpendicular to each other, then how are their axes going to be? So axis of 1, axis of 2. Okay. Then let this be the resultant. Okay. So along the axis 1, let's say the horizontal component of the first magnetic field's component is there. That is, if I take it as, so tan delta is what, according to the way they have given. So delta is the true angle of dip. So tan delta is how much? Tan delta is given by the formula BV divided by BH, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So delta 1, what did they say? Angle of dip observed in two planes. So delta 1 be the dip in plane 1. This is plane 1. Okay, let delta 1 be the dip in plane 1. Which makes an angle theta with magnetic meridian. Actually, this is an exemplar problem. See, with respect to CBSE, this is not needed, guys. That's all I can say. I don't want to confuse you. It is around 10 steps or 12 steps. Forget this. Let's do only simple problems which are going to be required. So this also I can forget. Take this. This is a simple one. Tell me. So the horizontal component of the Earth's magnetic field at a place is √3 times its vertical component there. So BH is equal to √3 times B vertical. Find the value of angle of dip at that place. What is the ratio of the horizontal component to the total magnetic field of the Earth at that place? So they have asked to find the angle of dip. Angle of dip is what? Tan delta is equal to BV divided by BH. So BV divided by BH is how much? It is 1 by √3. So delta is 30 degrees. So angle of dip is 30 degrees. So what is the ratio of the horizontal component to the total magnetic field? So horizontal component is √3 times BV. So BE square is equal to BV square plus BH square, right? So can I write it as BV square plus 3 times BV square? So it is 4 times BV square, which is BE square. So the Earth's magnetic field at that point is 2 times BV. So what did they ask? Horizontal component to the total magnetic field. So BH divided by BE is equal to √3 times BV divided by 2 times BV. Cancel it. It is root 3 by 2. I hope this problem is clear, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So other problems you guys can try, right? If there is any doubt, let me know. See, the 41st problem, I suggest you not, 42nd, I suggest you not to try it because it needs a lot of imagination. They have used the word meridian, and with respect to meridian also, it will not be stable. It will be apparent. All those things will come into picture. Okay. Some of those question came into the question paper. The tangent galvanometer also you need not do. So you concentrate only on the problem that I've discussed and do some more problems from the textbook. That's more than sufficient. Okay. So that's it from my side for today. Is there any other doubt?
No, sir.
Okay. Guys can leave them.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.